So what we're doing this afternoon is coming together to craft a pathway to victory for single-payer health care, Medicare for all in this country. So as organizers, we know that victory will require a powerful grassroots movement that incorporates the concerns of other social movements into its narrative. And as organizers, we know the only way to come together such a big movement is by holding one-on-one conversations with people and connecting with their felt concerns. Today, we will hear from a panel of activists with a broad range of experiences with that kind of, we call it the deep organizing. I like that term. So on our panel today, we have as our first speaker, let me just share with you. I got everybody's name. I spoke to them individually and said, how do you pronounce your name? Well, I share with you, that probably didn't work very well for me. So our first panelist is Mary Beth Gagne, who is from the Maine State Nurses Association and NNU, who will talk about their just launched listening campaign that trains union members to hold one-on-one conversations with their co-workers and to speak at public events. Mary Beth.
Hello. Back in the springtime, the AFL-CIO, along with Michael Leidy and Chris Nielsen from NNU, we met and started training union leaders so that we could go back to our unions and get deeper and broader into them to talk about Medicare for all so that we could have more workshops and really train other people. The second part of what we're doing is healthcare listening. So some people do not want to go out and speak to groups. They might want to do things one-on-one. They might want to talk to their family members, their coworkers, people at their church, friends, and that sort of thing. And what that means is that they are listening to what people are dealing with their health care or lack of health care. And another group that we're listening and talking to are laid off union people and what's happened with their health benefits since being laid off. And then along with listening, then we are bringing up Medicare for all and talking about how that could help everyone. The other thing that we're doing is we support candidates who will have a platform for Medicare for all. We most recently endorsed Jared Golden. He's running as a Democrat against Bruce Poliquin, who is a Republican representative from our state. And we supported a successful campaign for him. And so we're pretty busy, even though we just got started. We're doing lots of meetings and working on this.
One would think for the work that they're doing, it would take a longer presentation because they are really doing stellar work. It's like, and here's what we're doing, short and sweet. Sometimes short and sweet is good, and this is one of those days. Thank you so much, Mary Beth. Our next speaker is Dustin Guastella. Don't you just love it? Dustin is from the Democratic Socialists of America, and he's going to talk about their multi-city canvassing campaigns where they door knock on working class neighborhoods and canvassers seek to hold open-ended conversations about health care to the people that open the door.
Thank you, Marva. And thanks to Healthcare Now and the Labor Campaign, I'm really excited to be here on behalf of DSA. I wanted to talk about three things today, what I think are the three key approaches to the Democratic Socialist approach to winning Medicare for all. And those are, one, clarity in our demands, two, naming the enemy, and three, a mass approach to political organization. So first I want to talk about clarity. What do I mean by that? I mean political and ideological clarity. The Democrats right now are floating a lot of phony single-payer bills. We've heard about them quite a bit. They're calling them Medicare for anybody, or Medicare Part X, Y, or Z, or Medicare Part anything that goes. Now, the only reason they're doing this is to distract from our demand, which is a federally funded Medicare for all single-payer system. But in order for us to get that across, in order for us to get across what is Medicare for all, what's a real, robust Medicare for all system, we in DSA developed what we think are the 5 basic principles that make up a Medicare for all, a real Medicare for all system. So 1, what we say is that it's a single system, it's not a patchwork, right? 2, we say that it provides comprehensive care, right? We want all services provided by a medical professional covered. 3, we want it free at the point of service. That means no fees, no copays, no premiums, ever. 4, we want universal coverage, and that means all U.S. residents, because the flu doesn't check your green card, and neither should we. And 5, we want a just transition for all those workers that will be displaced when we abolish the private health insurance industry. That's jobs and severance for all those workers. So this leads us to the second thing. How are we going to get all this, right? Well, we have to name the enemy. We have to talk openly about why the United States doesn't have a social health insurance system. And the reason the United States doesn't have a social health insurance system is not because we haven't tried. For over 100 years, workers in this country have been pushing for something like socialized medicine. In 1943, we almost won it. We had the Wagner-Murray-Dingle bill. And this would have socialized a huge chunk of what we call the healthcare system today, and it would have nationalized hospitals, right? But we lost. And why did we lose? The reason why we lost is after World War II, the ruling class in this country emerged triumphant, and they went on an all-out offensive against anything that looked or smelled like socialized medicine. And the reason they took socialized medicine wasn't just because they have some sort of crazy, evil understanding of the world. It's because they know that socialized medicine is about class power. And that if we had a social insurance system, workers would be able to strike. They'd be able to organize. They'd be free to bargain for better working conditions and more freedom on the job. So the ruling class in this country said, no way, we're going to make sure that we have an employer-dictated system that chains you to your job, that makes sure that you can't be free to do those things. And so what we say is we have to point the finger squarely at them. Healthcare is a moral issue, and we know healthcare is a human right, but healthcare is a class struggle. Healthcare is about us versus them. It's about teachers, nurses, electricians, firefighters versus billionaire corporations, versus health insurance executives, versus social parasites that are leeching off the working class to make billions of dollars. So finally, how are we going to beat this entrenched ruling class? And this brings us to a third point. We have a mass approach to political organizing. And we do this through what we call mass canvases. We know we're going to need a truly mass movement to win Medicare for all. And the only way to build that mass movement is to revive a somewhat dormant political tradition in this country. And as Marva said, it's deep organizing. It's programmatic political organizing. For a long time in this country, for the past 40 years or so, a lot of left-wing advocacy has been based on stunt activism, celebrity endorsements, high-profile press conferences. But this is not how we're going to win Medicare for all. The way we're going to win Medicare for all is shop to shop, door to door, person to person, face to face organizing. And so believe it or not, this actually isn't hard to do. And we've been doing it in DSA. DSA commissioned 8 volunteer regional organizers to mobilize some 60 of our chapters across the country, to move some 1,000 of our volunteer members, to knock on doors for 12,000 different people in different cities, states across the country, to an audience of over 42,000, and that was in one weekend in April. And we need to multiply that tenfold if we're going to win Medicare for all. So I'll just close with this. I believe in this demand. I believe in Medicare for all, and I believe in social health insurance. And I think it is the key working class demand in this country. And I think it's not just about winning health insurance. What it is about is the defeat of the most entrenched ruling class in the history of the world. What it is about sparking a new 21st century working class movement in this country for universal goods and for demands that help the whole working class. And finally, what Medicare for all means is it means the establishment of a real and durable democratic socialism in the United States. Thank you very much.
I'm just going to make sure that he has my address. If he's knocking on doors, I want to be one. Oh, he didn't look like he was willing. I was getting a little concerned right then. So our next panel, I know where he lives, so that was a joke that he could knock on my door. I'm going to go and knock on his door. So our next panelist is Mary Lopez. Correct? I got that right? Mary. All together now? No. From the California Nurses Association. She's going to talk about the multiple experiences they have had in the campaign for a healthy California.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Such an honor to be in this space, really. I've been doing healthcare work for quite a long time now, and every time I come into a room full of folks that feel the same way I do, I feel very privileged to be in this space, so thank you. I really want to share a little bit about what's happening in California. As you all know, we launched in 2017 our single-payer campaign, our bill, SB 562. It's led by the nurses, of course, sponsored by the nurses. Before I share some of the things that we've been doing, I want all the folks from California to please stand up. Please stand up. Nope, stand, please remain standing, because everything I'm going to share with you is because of these folks. Okay, some folks are too tired. They're going to sit down. That's fine. So when we launched it and the bill was introduced, again, SB 562, to bring single payer to California, we set out and trained nurses and volunteers to go out and spread the word and talk to everybody. And they hit the road running. We across California, from San Diego to Eureka, we put on Train the Trainer events to teach folks how to talk to single payer from every angle, from business folks to people of color. And so from there, they found out across the state. They use those skills and that energy to present in any space that would listen to them, and particularly heating up Dem clubs. Dem clubs were really important because they led to a win in the state. Actually, the state Dem party actually endorsing SB 562 as their platform. And we got really creative. There are folks here. Y'all remember the play Hamilton? There were folks who actually canvassed Hamilton, and there's a couple of folks in here who I know are regulars out there. Christy, if you would stand up really quickly and be recognized. And Maureen over there, these folks stood out in front of Hamilton and passed out information about SB 562, and really, again, we're very creative and diverse in letting folks know to do about the campaign and about what we were trying to achieve here. Because as we've been talking about all these last couple of days, it is about letting folks know and educating everyone and everybody and everyone who will listen to us. So from there we started building our canvases. We are doing the door-to-door. We, on a weekly basis, because this is gaining momentum and energy, we hold 9 to 12 canvases every single weekend. And we have an average of 20 to 30 volunteers going out and knocking on doors, letting folks know about this. Again, we've already had over 1,000 volunteers participating with the campaign, and we've reached countless folks as well. And again, the support is growing in California. Now we're moving on to our phone banks. We're doing phone banks in California as well. We've just started those last month. We've already completed 18 phone banks. And one of the things I want to mention, because I did start to say that we do have a single-payer bill, SB 562. It made it through the Senate. It's currently being held in the Assembly by the Speaker of the House, which is basically the President of the Assembly. And folks have been very particular about canvassing his district every single weekend to put him on notice. And so much so that he hides from us every time he knows we're going to be in a space. Our efforts, our canvassing in our phone banks, folks, have included our messaging in different languages too. This is really important because if you've spoken to me at any point on this day, you've noticed that all I keep talking about is including people of color and doing things in multiple languages, and so that's really, really key. We're forging relationships with immigrant rights organizations, with poverty organizations who work in communities of color, with the Black community, women's rights organizations. And we're just launching a new initiative called the Faith-Based Alliance for us, and that's where we are hoping to launch it with a single day of service in which we get as many churches and church leaders in California to basically dedicate one of their services, or a day, or I should say a Sunday, to talking about and focusing on healthcare. And so that we'll be outside also with volunteers outside those churches to sign folks up and to have them share their healthcare story with us. So as you know, we just won the primary. One of our strongest supporters of single payer just won. And so we're very hopeful about winning single payer in California. And as you all have heard often enough, what happens in California, there goes the rest of the nation. So we're hoping that we can lead the way. We have a friendly rivalry with New York to be the first one. And so, again, really want to just recognize the wonderful people in this room from California. But again, all of the work that you've done. I'm here because of all of you. You've all have not given up. And so and because of your tenacity, then I have the privilege of standing here to share with you how we carry on. Thank you.
It's really great to hear, New York and California in a battle, and neither one of us can rap. So I'm thinking this battle, East Coast, West Coast, was a joke I always tell. East Coast, West Coast, and none of us can rap. So I can't. I just take that on myself. So our next panelist is Susan Aarup, who is a disability advocate from ADAPT Chicago. And she's going to be discussing the unique concerns of the disabled community and the importance of the single-payer movement to incorporate those concerns into our proposals. Susan.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I am going to put you on notice. There's only 7 of us here, 8 of us here from Illinois. Could those people from Illinois please stand up? Half of those people who stood up have disabilities. We are a force to be reckoned with. And they told me they wanted me to speak man, that was the wrong thing to do. But it wasn't the wrong thing to do. For many, many decades, people with disabilities have been shunned. We are considered often to be the unheard, and we have a lot to say. And without single payer, our medical establishment will keep getting worse. But there are parts of it, the long-term care debate, and it's a debate because there's a big debate as to what's medical and what's a social service, and what kind of service can be performed by a doctor versus a personal assistant. When many of those services that I need to stay in my home, and that many folks with people with disabilities need to stay at home, can be provided with personal assistance. If a doctor tells me how to explain it, then the personal assistant can help me do that. And then if there's another thing where I feel more comfortable going into the clinic, I can do that. That's consumer control. In Illinois, with our home services, they have tried to take away our consumer control and tie this medical insurance that's supposed to be so good to our employment. Well, that's fine, but I'm here to tell you that 75% of people with disabilities don't have jobs because they're too scared to employ us, and they think the accommodations are going to cost too much money. Well, that's a bunch of bull. But healthcare is the only way to go, and long-term care services should not be in insurance. I have friends who have policies on long-term care because they could afford that, but they don't know if they're going to still have it in 10 years when they need it. We are all that much closer to having a disability. If you live long enough, I can guarantee you're gonna have one. And you're gonna need long-term care services to be in this bill. And I am sick and tired of being told what services I'm gonna get and decisions made without me. And it's everybody in, nobody out. And it's also nothing about us without us.
Thank you so much, Susan. All of us are well aware whenever you go to any state capital, if you go to Washington, D.C., those sisters and brothers who are like you are the ones that are really putting it on the line. They're the ones getting arrested. They're the ones that are saying what you want doesn't work for us. And I thank you for your bravery and for your words. I thank you.